Did you know that the less expensive Freo Z10 has the best corner cleaning of all of Narwal's units? It has this little arm that sticks out a little further, and it lets Z10 get really close into corners, and it also cleans right along the baseboards in my home. Now what's interesting about this is that the more expensive Z Ultra can't do that. It's not quite as good in the corners, although one thing that really helps Ultra is that it can recognize when it needs to apply stronger mopping pressure to your floors, and then it adjusts. It's things like this that I'll show you, and I will explain how they affect Narwal's top 3 models as I compare the inexpensive Freo Pro, the new mid-range Freo Z10, and the ultimate in navigation, the Freo Z Ultra. I'll also be giving you my recommendation for which types of homes and families I think each of these devices fit. Let's give her. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and if you're into saving time and money on your journey to live a bit smarter, well, today's video will do both. Now, not only am I going to quickly compare these units and give you the big things that will matter to you, but I'm also publishing this video because Narwal is having a fantastic sale right now. If you've been waiting, this is probably the right time. I run this test with almost every robot vacuum I get here. It's always the same cereal, it's always the same process, and we're crunching a handful of cereal and then just seeing how the unit performed. Freo Z10 was the first unit I sent out for this round of testing. It does a perfect edge cleaning. That's actually based on settings in the app. But then you can see that the sweepers are moving very slow. It's identified that it's cleaning up a big mess, and it just runs over very meticulously through all of the debris that's on the floor. So it recognized very quickly and cleans up the mess to almost 95, maybe even to 98%. There's a few things kicked out, but it's a very smooth operation. When we send out Freo Pro, it's a little bit of a different story. This one comes into the mess, it goes right at the big mess, and this is because they run kind of a different program when cleaning up in an area with Freo Pro. It does these circular loops through an area, and you'll see this all over the map when you're doing bigger cleaning jobs, and this causes it to run right through most of the mess right at the start, and it actually kicks out a little bit. So if I was going to run this test and I wanted really good performance from Freo Pro, what I would do is I would make the area bigger, because once it does recognize that it's cleaning up a bigger mess, it slows down the sweepers and it starts to do better. And it still gets to between 90 and 95% of this mess. Even when I went and I looked at the whole area, it did just fine. It just distributes the mess a little bit. With Freo Z Ultra, I've run this test a number of times, and honestly, I use this robot vacuum in my home all the time. So I knew what I was getting here. This robot vacuum, as it comes up to the area, you'll see it actually kind of pause here. It has figured out that there's a bunch of debris on the ground, and it's actually taken a picture and sent it to the app. Then it proceeds to not only clean up the mess in the area, it slows down the sweepers, and it just makes sure it's doing the right patterns here, but it also goes outside of the main spill area, and then it cleans up around. So in case it has pushed anything out into another area, it makes sure that the whole spill is cleaned up. And what you'll notice with Z Ultra is that once it's cleaned up the main mess here, it actually speeds up its sweeper. So it's trying to bring the standard debris. So it's just making sure it gets every little bit of this, and it comes really close. There are some reasons for these differences, so let me show you that. And I think the most important thing to understand is that there are some pretty big differences in terms of navigation here. So typically we see kind of this top bar. This is always representative of LiDAR navigation. Now, Narwal uses something called LDS on the Freo Pro here and the Z10. There is a slight difference between the two units. Now this uses what's called forward structured light, while as this uses tri-structured light. And it does mean that when you get a little closer here, there's kind of a little extra capability of sensing objects in kind of different directions. So it does improve the navigation a bit here. But the ultimate in navigation, right here, see this twin AI dodge. We have the LiDAR, we have that structured light, but we also have dual cameras, dual RGB cameras. And there's a lot of processing power on this unit that basically results in identifying up to 100 different things throughout your home, as well as what I would call near perfect navigation. In the end, what it means is Z Ultra identifies really fast and then handles the messes better, the big messes. It just knows what it's going up to. These other two navigate really well. They don't run into a lot of things, and you'll see that in our later testing, but they can't do that object recognition that Z Ultra can do, and the mess recognition just results in that extra cleaning power. Now, to get a little deeper into this discussion, we're gonna flip them over. One thing you might notice is that all three of these have the exact same roller brush. This is called the Zero Tangle floating roller brush. It's a design that they built a number of units ago. I think it was Freo X Ultra, which is a couple years old now. I've never found hair caught in these. It really is zero tangling. Now, this is accompanied with some slight differences in terms of vacuuming power. So what happens in this lineup is really what's happened with the industry. So this is kind of your mid-range bot. It has 8,500 pascals of suction pressure. And this one, Z Ultra, has 12,000, whereas this, the mid-range new unit, has 15,000, and that's just because these companies are constantly figuring out how to put more suction power into units. So actually, the mid-range unit has the highest suction power. What that difference in suction power does for you, you're not really going to notice it on hardwood floors or engineered floors. Where it hits is when you have a lot of carpeting. And what I'll tell you is I don't see a lot of differences in terms of the cleaning power on carpets between Z Ultra and Z10. Yes, you have that extra suction power, but I'm not finding it really changing things. Maybe it's changing things really deep down into kind of high pile carpets, but I'm not seeing that. What I do see is there is a difference between kind of Freo Pro and those other two units, just a little bit in terms of carpets. The performance is really good with all of them, so it's not a big concern, but something you should note. One difference you will note is right here. So these are the side brushes, and you'll notice the same side brushes on Z10 and Freo Pro over here. So they have a new, it's called a dynamic detangling brush. And basically it can move this arm to release hair that's been caught or carpet fibers that have been caught. You'll notice these are not dynamic. Okay, this is on Z Ultra, so it's a little bit of an older brush design, and honestly, that's that's the most hair I've ever seen wrapped around that right there. So I don't actually ever really find anything wrapped around there. That's the most I've ever seen. And that goes for all 3 of these. Now, we did a really crazy test of this system with a wig. Like, I cut out hair, I threw it down in front of Freo Pro, and that detangling system with these and the roller brush kind of combined is incredible. I never really see hair caught in any of these. So you don't even get a tool with narwhals to cut out that hair, and it's because you don't need it. There's no cover to take off of Freo Pro. I'll explain what that means. But you can see 2 vacuum bags, same capacity in Z Ultra and Z10. And although these dustbins look the same, they are a little bit different. Now, I'm gonna open up Z Ultra. I've had this one for, well, it's been almost a year now. So what you're seeing right here is kind of a complex dustbin. This is actually something that you can clean out. Like, I've taken it out, I've washed it out, and yeah, there's a little bit of sediment that can be in there from time to time. And you can see that the system is basically pulling everything out of this. We have a little filter, and it's a pretty small capacity, actually, isn't it? Well, that's about a 300 milliliter size bin. The same thing is on Z10, but what we have here is an 800 milliliter dust bin. And you can use the bags on these. So you can see I've cleaned this one out, but there's only vacuum bags in those 2. So there's no vacuum bag here. This will be stored. Any debris will be stored here. It's not pulling it into the base station on this unit. You end up with 7 weeks of capacity versus 12 on these 2 using this vacuum bag. And because it doesn't pull everything up, I have found a little more debris at the bottom of that base station. One extra thing, you know, this is a minor point, but if you have lower baseboards, that actually, as the vacuum runs along, it will get your baseboards a little clean. So there's a little extra cleaning power there. This is another test that I always run. I put down quite a bit of quote unquote milk, and then I let the robot vacuums run over these spots. Again, we start with Freo Z10, and the one thing I don't want you to pay attention to is the edge cleaning, okay? That's not what we're testing here, because we've set an area that isn't right up against this wall. We'll talk about edge cleaning in a bit, but what you will see is that Z10 is doing a very meticulous pattern running through the entire mess multiple times with its 2 mops, and it's making sure it's covering the whole area. Now, it does drive a little bit of the mess out, and what I'll tell you is there's almost nothing on the floor outside of the area. It goes back and it washes the mops at the base station, and then it comes back out. And this pattern actually repeats itself 3 times before I just stop the unit. At the end of this, the entire mess is cleaned up. There is a little bit just outside of the screen, but we're talking a very minor amount. Then I send out Z Ultra. The edges of this, don't pay attention to that, but I put a lot of milk down. Freo Z Ultra, right away, it knows what it's doing, and you'll notice it just slows down a little bit as it starts to go through the mess. One thing I did notice about Z Ultra is it didn't pull any of the mess out of the area. And I also noticed that it decided to increase its downward mop pressure because it had discovered that there was a big mess here. Now it comes back, it does this area again and again, and don't treat the edge cleaning as part of this test. So you will see some of it gathering there, but Z Ultra comes out 5 times, and it runs in different patterns in order to clean up this mess. In the end, it does get everything. It just to a few extra times here. With Freo Pro, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had run this test before, but not with so much milk. Now, it actually does a really great job with that slightly different navigation pattern where it's kind of doing that circular movement. I think this really works well for mopping up larger messes. Once again, it does go back and forth a few times, washing the mops, bringing the mops back full of water, and then ensuring that this entire mess is cleaned up. And you know, when you look into the app with all three of these, what you end up finding is that all of them have identified that there is a stain on the floor in this spot, or a big mess. They tell you how many times they came out, and this just means that they know what they're doing. So why do we see all of these very similar results? Well, they appear to be similar, but not everything is the same. Let me show you what I mean. These are all the same mops physically on here. They're triangular, they overlap. Narwal says about 10 millimeters. And they all run basically the same. But there are some differences in terms of that overall cleanliness, and you're seeing it a little visually here. So it's not that these are really dirty, but there is a difference here. And I've had Z Ultra for a year, and that's how the mops look. So the system being employed here, and I would say here, is really keeping those clean. Over time, you're probably gonna have a little more wear and tear on these mops. And the reason for that is that both Z10 and Z Ultra do hot water mop washing. This is a major component. The other thing is they're direct injecting when they come back and they get water from the base station. They are direct injecting this cleaner into the unit. Now, that is not happening here. It doesn't mean you can't use a floor cleaner. It doesn't mean you can't do things, but it does result in what I'm seeing, a little difference here in the mops over time. There's also one big difference right here. So on Z Ultra, this is basically an indicator of the electrolyzed water. Now what that means is the water that's being put down by this unit has some extra cleaning and deodorizing capability. That's over and above the other two units. They don't have that. Now just so you can see, this is Z Ultra. And the tray, you know, these are very easy to pop out. You just kind of pull here. But this whole tray in the back is being self-cleaned by Z Ultra. So again, you have another reason that these mops are being kept so clean. Now that self-cleaning doesn't happen here. So you will have to pull out that tray, not that often with Z10, but you do have to pull that out. And you can see after a few days of really intense testing, I'm getting a little bit in there and I might need to do a cleanup. With Freo Pro, there is kind of that same system. We are mop washing, but not with that hot water. And because of the way it does the debris storage, sometimes I see a little more of the debris here. So overall, we end up having to clean out Freo Pro a little more often than the other two. There's one more difference between Freo Pro and the other two units, and I don't think this will matter to a lot of people, but you can put like a floor maintenance solution into those other two units in place of the detergent, right? So you can actually switch that out, do some maintenance on your floor, kind of spread whatever that is around. Now, I haven't used that myself. That might be a big thing for you. You can check the accessories that you can buy for those other two models to see more about that. Now, the last component of mopping that we really didn't talk about in this test is edge cleaning and how it handles corners. So we put together something called, well, I'm calling it the Room of Doom. And it's just a really hard room for robot vacuums and mops to navigate. And then I'm going to show you the performance, the results of that. Let's go. Now, this room was set up to be difficult. Not only do we have a couple of corners, but we also have people who lazily put away these cables. I wonder who that guy was. Then we have a kitchen table with the appropriate jersey hung on it. And, you know, I've kept the legs fairly close together. In some cases, left little gaps, made it a little bit random. Now, you'll notice this is pulled out because I did have one of these vacuums pull this out, but this was stretched all the way over there. I can't show you that lamp. But then it came all the way here and right into this, and we saw how these vacuums could handle that navigation problem. Now here is a PS4 controller and a remote that I left on the ground. So lots of things to deal with over just on this side of the room. Here is a black mat, very thin, very difficult to kind of recognize for lots of robot vacuums. And then you can see I just left some shoes out. The biggest difference I saw in all of this was with this cable. Freo Z Ultra essentially has perfect navigation. I don't know how to say it any other way. It is essentially perfect. It went around that cable perfectly. It knew it was there. It identifies it on the map. And yeah, it just cleans around it as close as it can get. It's not always right up on the edge, but most of the time it's pretty amazing. Then with you know, the remote, the PlayStation controller, perfectly around those. And the same thing really with the table. So from a navigation standpoint, absolutely incredible around those difficult objects. It was the same thing with the fan and that cable. So from my perspective, if you've got a lot on the floor, if you've got a lot of cables, a lot of things, you got kids, they're gonna leave their stuff all over the place. Z Ultra's navigation makes it the perfect choice for families like that. Now, it's not like I saw a lot of problems from the other two vacuums here. It kind of went in order of price in terms of navigation. So, you know, Freo Pro, it was the one that pulled out that cable from the wall eventually. And of course, you'll have to watch for that if you buy that unit. It'll deal with larger cables. I've actually done tests in the past where if it's kind of a thicker cable, it's not gonna suck it up. But when it's kind of those thinner ones, that's a difficult test. So this is really not fair for a lot of robot vacuums. They would almost all do this. The Z10, you know what? It pulled that cable a little bit, but it did eventually let it go. What kind of gets Z10 in a little bit of trouble is what we'll talk about next, because it was the best performer in another part of this test. So when we talk about the kitchen table in all its glory, being used for study mostly these days, and balloons, very important stuff. Anyways, you know, when we talk about getting around here, all three units did an amazing job. Z Ultra actually left some of the bigger gaps here initially, but then it went back and it filled in those gaps. All three of the units were really good, but of course with Z10, you know what? It sticks out that little leg or that little arm in the back to get all along these edges. And what that did right here in the corner is it got it right in there. It's not like the other two were far out either. They just didn't get right in there. So that little arm, I tell you, it does some great things for the edge cleaning. Anyways, the other thing that I think is really important to talk about here is right here. Now this carpet, it's black, so lots of robot vacuums will even think that they're falling downstairs. None of the robot vacuums were concerned about that. They all reacted correctly. They all raised the suction power, and they all lifted the mops, and that's what you want. So you've seen the performance, and now it's time to get down to the recommendations. I think it's important to note that all of these are more than enough when we talk about cleaning most homes. It really comes down to a little bit of convenience and a few extras that you get as you go up in price. Now, Freo Pro is very budget friendly. It's gonna do the job for most small to medium-sized homes. It's gonna be perfect for routine or everyday cleaning, and I think there's just a few things that you're gonna miss out on versus the other units. That onboard storage of the dust or debris will bug some of you, but it does compress the dust, and that gets you up to those 7 weeks. Still, less capacity, so it's a job you end up doing more often. It's kind of the same thing with a lack of detergent injecting system for the mopping and the lack of hot water mop washing. You have a little less of those base cleaning features versus these other units too, and what that means is you spend a little more time on maintenance over here. The one thing for those of you with lots of carpets is this does have a lower suction power. But in the end, this is going to be great for smaller homes and ones that just want to have a routine go on. It's a very inexpensive unit to run. It's very quiet, and it's going to get 90 to 95% of the cleaning jobs done that you need it to do. So if you're on a budget, this is where you go. On the flip side, if you're a tech enthusiast like me and you never want to think about anything cleaning related, Freo Z Ultra is the choice. Now, this is my personal favorite because, yeah, I'm a tech type of guy. I also love the fact that I don't have to think about this one going out at any time. I don't have to think about cables. I don't have to think about toys or remotes or really anything. It just deals with any problem on its own. And it's all of that AI capability and the extra navigation tech and object avoidance and object recognition that's just been packed into this. It's just a set and forget mop and vacuum. And honestly, I could go on for a while about Z Ultra. It has great suction power. It has that adaptive mop pressure, does the electrolyzed water and the hot water mop washing, plus it even self-cleans the base station. So it's just doing everything for you, and I actually think this is worth it to upgrade for most people. But I know not everyone feels those extra features are necessary. And that's where Z10 is probably the middle ground that will fit most families. You're not really giving up anything in terms of cleaning power, and in fact, you're going up in suction power. You still have the hot water mop washing, and it's actually really good at overall cable management, overall navigation, and object avoidance. We put it through these really tough tests today, but I've found while using this one, it's actually really close to Z Ultra on that navigation front. The edge cleaning, the corner cleaning, that's going to be important for a lot of you. And I think that the upgrade on this is going to mean a lot of people will feel like this fits their home. So I think this is my recommendation for most mid-sized homes, and especially those of you with a good mix of carpet versus hardwood or engineered flooring. It's just the right cost versus performance mix for most families. I hope that helps, but I'm sure lots of you have kind of come to your own conclusions about where you'd like to head in this lineup. So I have 3 different resources to help you make that final decision if you need more help. Number 1, all the links to these deals and to the robot vacuums are below in the description. You can go read kind of extra specifications and get to those deals. Number 2, I pride myself on answering all the comments or questions on our channel. So if you have questions about something you did or didn't see in today's video, leave those down below. I'll help you out where I can. And number 3, I built a playlist of all of our reviews of robot vacuums, and I have almost every Narwal robot in my home, and I put all of those videos right there. You'll see crazy difficult tests like peanut butter or Nutella mopping, impossible obstacle avoidance tests, and even wigs cut up to test these no tangle brushes. It's all there in that playlist. So check those reviews out. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, live smart.